When Picasso Met Mootisse. Written and illustrated by Nina Layden. There once was a young pig named Picasso. While the other piglets rolled around in the mud and played games, Picasso painted. He painted anything and everything in a most unusual way. At the same time, there once was a young bull named Mootisse. Mootisse was not like the other bulls. He wasn't interested in bullfighting. Mootisse was happy only when he painted pictures, and he painted big, bold, bright pictures. In time, word of Picasso's talent spread throughout the pig provinces. Soon, art-loving pigs from all over lined up to buy his creations. At the same time, Mootisse was getting famous in the cattle community. There weren't many households that didn't own a moosterpiece. Picasso and Mootisse were becoming art superstars, but this came with a price. Everybody wanted to see them. Art buyers, art sellers, art students, art historians, art groupies. It was an art attack. One day, Picasso got fed up and said, "I'm tired of this noisy pig pen." At the same time, Mootisse declared, "I'm sick of this crowded cow town." Needing a change, they both decided to look for a peaceful place where they could paint without distractions. So each of the two artists looked far and wide for the perfect spot. Picasso found a lovely farm looking towards the east. Mootisse found a handsome farm facing the west. After Picasso moved in, he went to introduce himself to his new neighbor across the road. At the same time, Mootisse went to introduce himself to his new neighbor across the road. That is how Picasso met Mootisse. And coincidentally, that is how Mootisse met Picasso. At first, Picasso and Mootisse were friendly and welcomed each other as neighbors. But soon, things began to change. It started one day when Picasso criticized one of Mootisse's paintings. Then Mootisse made fun of one of Picasso's. Mootisse called Picasso an art hog. Then Picasso called Mootisse a mad cow. Mootisse quipped, "You paint like a 2-year-old." Picasso retorted, "You paint like a wild beast." Mootisse raged. "Your colors look like mud," Picasso spat. "Your paintings look like color by numbers." Then things got really out of hand. Picasso stormed off into his house. "That Mootisse doesn't like my art," he huffed. "Well, I'll show him." And Mootisse bullied his way into his house. "I'll give that Picasso something he can really criticize," he snorted. Then a full-scale feud erupted. But it was a most unusual battle. Armed with ladders and buckets of paint, Mootisse launched his first attack. It started at dawn. By the end of the evening, he had succeeded in transforming the outside of his house into a monster-sized moosterpiece. Not to be outdone, Picasso fired up his paintbrushes and in full view of the enemy, counterattacked. He turned his farm into a huge and outrageous pork of art. The two artists then retreated into their houses and pulled down the shades. Picasso certainly didn't want to look out his window and stare at Mootisse, and Mootisse had no desire to give his rooms a view of a Picasso. This presented a problem, and there seemed to be only one solution. Without a word to each other, Picasso and Mootisse each began to build a huge wooden fence down the middle of their road. At first, Picasso and Mootisse seemed satisfied. Both artists went back to painting by themselves. But after a while, Picasso was surprised to find that he missed that bull-headed Mootisse. And at the same time, Mootisse found his studio empty without the presence of a pig-headed Picasso. Picasso pondered, "That Mootisse isn't such a bad artist. He has some interesting ideas." Mootisse moaned, That Picasso may not paint like me, but he knows what he's doing. However, being naturally pig-headed and bull-headed, neither artist knew how to apologize to the other. So they did what they do best. They let their paintbrushes do the talking. Picasso painted on one side of the fence, and Mootisse painted on the other. Each worked until they were exhausted. It was strangely quiet when they were done. Then, curious to see what Mootisse had been doing, Picasso sprinted around to the other side. At the same time, Mootisse galloped over to Picasso's side. The silence was broken as the two artists began laughing at their amazing work of art. From that day on, Picasso and Mootisse became great friends. They happily took down the fence and shared their different views. A few months later, a big museum bought the fence. Picasso called his side when Picasso met Mootisse. Mootisse called his side when Mootisse met Picasso. The critics called it incredible. The end.
What you'll need today, you'll need your fourth quarter related arts packet. And here we have some famous artist coloring sheet. And today we need the Henry Mootisse coloring sheet. And then this is for extra, it's color by numbers. You color the number, so number 2, you would find pink and color everything with the number 2 on it, pink. So that's optional. You could do that in your free time. Also in here is the Picasso. This is for you to color this week or next week. And then here's Picasso. If you wanted to draw in his cubist style, you could do that here. That's all extra for you. So the Mootisse picture we ripped out because we're going to turn this rectangle, one of his paintings, the sheaf, we're going to make this into a Mootisse. This is going to be our cow's body, and we're going to add to the rectangle and turn it into a cow. So you actually need that paper, and you'll also need a white paper, and I always have white paper at the back of the related arts packet, so you'll need that paper too today. So first step, we're going to cut out the rectangle. Now that I have my rectangle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it to the middle of my page. I'm going to glue around the outside edges, the perimeter. There are 4 sides on this rectangle, 2 short and 2 long. And I'll give it a squiggle in the middle. And I'm going to glue that down to the middle of my paper. That's going to be my cow's body. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a black crayon to draw in the shapes that I need to turn this into a cow. So let's do a cow's head. We're going to do a short little line down here for the mouth and a long line near the top for the top of the head. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the short line to the long line, the short line to the long line, and that's the cow's head. And then I'm going to do some ears. They're like letter V's upside down. And then I'll draw a line here for the cow's nose, and I'll do a little spiral and a spiral for his nostrils, dot I and dot I. And then what I'll do is I'll add some rectangles for the feet. I could add lines for the hooves. And then letter V, skinny for the tail, and then a circle for the hair. Then I'm going to add some hair at the top with a zigzaggy line. And then I'm going to try to draw some more spots on the face, those Mootisse-like shapes. And then after that, I'm going to draw that horizon line. Remember where the blue sky touches the green grass? So I'm going to go halfway on my cow. And I'm going to do a zigzag line off to the side. and a zigzag line off to the side. And then I'm gonna speed it up while I color. The spots of my cow are the organic shapes that we saw in the Mootisse paintings. You could color your cow spots black for a black and white cow, or brown. And then when you color, remember that horizon line, the green grass touches the blue sky. Okay, now that I'm done with my Mootisse, all I have to do is sign it. Okay, it's your turn to work on your Mootisse. Cut out that rectangle for the body and then draw the lines and shapes to turn that rectangle into a cow. Okay, can't wait to see your Mootisse.